Welcome to the Play in Faith podcast, where we dive into the world of sports through the lens of optimism, inspiration, and faith. We're on a mission to infuse youth sports culture with positivity and joy while building the largest network of college Christian athlete mentors in the world. Thanks for stopping by. Enjoy today's show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Coach Chris from the Play in Faith podcast. I am so excited today. We've got a treat for you. We have Mr. Roger Grossman, recent inductee to the Indiana Broadcaster Hall of Fame and the very long-time voice of the Warsaw Tigers. You guys are in for a treat. How's it going today, Roger?
Good. It's good to be with you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much for carving out some time to chat with everybody today. I know you guys are right in the throes of it. We've got it's a beautiful time to live where we do in Indiana. You guys got high school March Madness. I believe you drew the bye. Are you guys Tuesday night or Friday?
No, Friday. We play Friday. We play Elkhart at Elkhart.
Okay, yeah. And then for those of you who are local, you're well aware of what Warsaw is facing. For those of you in our national audience, whoever gets through that section's got a really good look at playing pretty deep into March here. So it's gonna be some fun.
Will be. It's the best of time because the girls' season has just ended. Yeah. The boys' season is regular season's over. Sectional week, you eliminate everybody down to 64 teams out of over 400. So this is really the coolest week of the year.
Yeah, and sectionals can be so cruel too, based on geography, where obviously, you guys had a heartbreaker on the girls' side. You get through that one, you may not have another game that tough and for another couple of weeks. Like, we happen to be positioned in a place where if you get through this sectional, other than downtown Indy, you beat some of the best teams in the state.
Well, it is the cruelty of the tournament as a whole, right?
Yeah.
Where you have a bad quarter, you have a bad possession, and all of a sudden everything looks different. We saw it with the Norwell girls on Saturday night.
Yeah.
They're up 5 at the end of the third quarter against undefeated Center Grove, and they're in control of the game.
Yeah, they were. They have a 15-0 run. And
they have a bad 2 minutes to start the fourth quarter, and now they can't put the cap back on the bottle, and they end up losing. They're 3 at the buzzer is no good, and they end up losing by 3 points in the state championship game.
That was a frantic one too, though, because they closed on like the 9-0 run to get back into. I mean, that was just a really wild one, and obviously Norwell's done incredible things. Center Grove, I believe, you're more the expert than I am. I believe that is the first undefeated state champion in Indiana since 2012 on the girls' side.
Right.
It's been a while.
Right. Yeah.
So a heck of a time. And then I've read about this all the time too, and we talk about it with coaches. And I'm already joking with my parents, with my younger girls. Next week is our tournament, and and I already joked with the parents. I was like, I'm well aware because I've had these girls for 5 years. I will cry at the end of the game. I will hide from you guys because I will be tear streaked. And they're like, "Do you think we'll win or lose?" And I'm like, "It's a tournament, so just about everybody ends with a loss." But that's not the tears. It's more just that, I've had these girls for 5 years, and now I pass them to high school and reset with the next group. But that sports is beautiful, but also cruel in that it almost always ends in a defeat.
Yes. I mean, in the end, even at the state finals with class basketball, only 4 teams are really happy.
Right.
Norwell is going to be 5 years from now. They're going to look back and they're going to go, "Oh my gosh, what did we do? We lost in the 3A championship game as sophomores. We won the 3A championship as juniors. We got moved up. Mm-hmm. We beat Homestead twice.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We made it all the way to the state championship again and got beat in the state championship again." Who could complain about that later? Right now, Their hearts are broken, and we all get it.
Yeah, it's the cruelty of sports. But so before we dive into some things that you've gotten to experience, being the longtime voice of Warsaw, you probably aren't comfortable with the accolade, but we're going to brag on you a little bit. So, recent inductee into the Indiana Broadcasters Hall of Fame. So congratulations. That is an unbelievable accomplishment. So just give us a couple of minutes to, obviously there is a long path between Maybe
Yes.
I want to grab a microphone to I am in the Hall of Fame. So I won't make you cover 30 years in 2 minutes, but just tell us a little bit about like kind of your journey. How did you get started in this
Yeah.
and how did you end up where you're sitting right now?
Well, I joke all the time that my first sports broadcast was in my parents' backyard, and my first audience were the birds and the bees and the butterflies.
Amen.
Because when I was little, 5, 6 years old, my first experience in broadcasting a game was throwing a wiffle ball up, hitting it with a wiffle ball bat, and trying to hit home runs over my parents' grapevine because I was a Cubs fan. And that was as close to Wrigley Field as I was ever going to get. So I would practice repeating what the Cubs announcers said during those broadcasts. I had a stay-at-home mom, and we lived on a farm where we had a huge garden. So we shelled peas and shucked corn and snapped green beans and
Wow.
canned tomatoes while we were listening to those home afternoon Cubs games before they put lights in. And so that's when I first fell in love with it. I had speech impediments that I had to get over. I did speech therapy basically 3 times a week for all 6 years of my elementary school.
Wow.
Got got through high school, went to Butler, got my degree, did my internship here in Warsaw at WRSW, and 35 years later, they can't get rid of me.
Nice. So you started out broadcasting Warsaw. I believe you had girls games. Was that where you started? Was it on the
Yeah,
boys side or the
I,
girls side?
I was doing color commentary for football for
Okay.
$10 a game and doing the play-by-play for the girls basketball for 25 a game.
Oh, nice. I remember jokingly when I first met you because I filled in for our local radio broadcast. They were short and they're like, "Hey, dude, you coach basketball and talk for a living. Grab a mic." And I didn't get paid at all, so that's not. So I sent them an email. I think they owe me $10.
Oh yeah, for sure. At least that.
I'm gonna collect on that. But so obviously it's led to just a fantastic journey. I mean, you're incredibly blessed that to just be part of the tapestry of one of the better programs just all around in the state of Indiana. There's been Miss Basketballs and state championships on the women's side. I know the guys have gotten deep. Have they won a state on the boys' side? I know you've seen like
Well,
Rick
they did in
Fox and some of the guys come
1984,
through.
but that was before me.
Okay.
Went to the 4A championship in 2010
Yeah.
with
Okay.
Nick Moore and
Mhm.
got beat by Indianapolis North Central, who had 3 Big Ten players on their team. So
Yeah, you're seeing some dudes like when you look back at like teams that won like state titles and you're like, wait a second, is that guy
yeah,
playing for the Memphis Grizzlies? Like, I mean, you're talking about that
yes,
kind of
yes,
talent.
for
So
sure.
it started out like football, girls basketball, and now you have called just about. Did you take a little gap? But you've basically called every girls basketball game. You do both the boys and the girls,
I
football, basketball, the whole deal
Yep, I
now.
started doing Warsaw football, 3 years of color commentary, um, and then was doing Warsaw girls game that first year, which was 91, 92.
Mhm.
The radio station reassigned me because they were doing Grace College games. So I did Grace College basketball for 3 years and helped out with Rita Price's WRSW FM broadcasts. And
Sure.
then after that time, went back and was doing the girls and Tippecanoe Valley football. And then in 2002, in November, I switched back over, did a football playoff game for Warsaw, and then started doing the boys basketball games for the first time. And I've been doing all of them and Tiger Talk on Saturday morning since.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I know it's probably hard to boil down 30 years of memories and all these great teams, but as you look back at just all the neat things that have happened with Warsaw, like anything that really stands out to you is just some memories that have lingered. And maybe it's not just winning a basketball game or winning a football game, but just what are some memorable moments that really have lasted with you?
Well, I think when you're thinking about your time as the Tiger broadcaster, you're thinking about moments, right?
Sure.
And capturing moments. Um, when the Warsaw boys in 2010 went to the state championship game, the end of that semi-state game, we'll never forget that. Um, the girls winning the semi-state championship at the Tiger Den in 2004. And that was here in the Tiger Den. That game went to overtime. And so having my voice associated with that call. And then last year, semi-state championship, number one, undefeated Hamilton Southeastern, unbeatable. And here the Lady Tigers are in this game at the end. Two players foul out. They're two leading scorers.
Yeah.
The third leading scorer with a minute to go says, I'm taking over. Give me the ball. And she's not their primary ball handler, but she got the ball across the line, got fouled, made her free throws, and they upset number one Hamilton Southeastern to go back to the state championship game. When you think about those memories, the on-the-court stuff, and of course, football goes to the state championship when they'd never won a regional. They won a regional.
What an embarrassing of riches this year. It's not fair.
The 2004, 24, 25 sports season, Warsaw, was just unbelievable. 11 of the 16 teams on campus won sectionals.
And I saw you just had a diver win a state title and get a huge award. Your basketball program is cooking on both sides. Boys might be a little down the ship. It's still excellent, but like last year, I mean, yeah, you guys are just going deep in every single sport, it seems like.
Right. And the boys basketball team this year only has 3 guys that were on the sectional roster from last year. Most of these guys were JV guys as freshmen. Now they're varsity guys as sophomores, and they really weren't ready for that.
Yeah, you're still having a good season, but I mean, like coming off last year, you had some pretty high level, like, collegiate talent, and you had some size. And like what's funny, like for those of us, for our listeners who follow our show, and thank you to all of you who do, by the way, we've just hit a couple 100,000 impressions through all our channels. Like, I'm just thrilled like that this mission is really starting to resonate. So some of you may have heard Coach Krebs, who's the girls basketball coach over at Warsaw, as his episode, and then we just recently did one with Chandra Hepler on the volleyball side of things as well. So if you haven't caught those, go back to the archives. They're fantastic. But when we talk about that HSE or the Hamilton Southeast game, we talked with Lenny about that, like kind of that moment when they put, I want to say like an 8 or 10-0 run. So here they are. And at one point, HSE was ranked in like the USA Today national poll. I want to say they got to like 9th or 11th in the nation. And for a public school, right? I mean, for a public school, that's just unheard of. Like, you're talking about the IMG academies and like the place where LeBron's kids go out in California. So it's an unbelievable like story. And then the game started to unravel. They put like an 8-10-0 run. They said he called timeout and just talk to them, not about X's and O's, not about strategy, just connect. And I found that is something that has lingered with me and the way I talk to my teams who are much younger, and hopefully coaches everywhere. And I think it's the moments like that just make this like so rewarding. And first of all, as great as these girls are, HSC had like a 6'5" girl had an IU. Right. I mean, like Warsaw's biggest kid was 5'11", 6 foot. Like, I mean, it was really, I mean, she's a heck of a ball player, but I mean, unbelievable. So are there some moments, I know we've talked before off air too, about just some of those moments that really linger that maybe didn't have anything to do with winning or a superstar. I know you've told me some stories, like any other moments that just really stand out from like the recent seasons where, it's more than just the sport.
I'll give you a couple.
Yeah.
The boys basketball team on their senior night, rather than Coach Moore coming up after the game, he sent the seniors, right? And there are 4 of them. And when we're done, I send it to a commercial break, and I look back, and the parents are all stacked up back here behind them, and they all had their phones out, and I stood there during the entire 2 minutes of that commercial break, getting my picture taken with the seniors because they wanted to have their picture taken with me.
That's awesome.
Now, that's reminded, as I packed up the stuff and walked out, it's like, these guys, you're not going to have a moment with them like the boys did last year, like the girls have had. You're not going to have those on-court moments. They don't care. You loved them. You fought for them, you advocated for them on the air,
Yeah.
and they appreciated that. The girls' moments I remember were after the games where they would gather the other team with them, make a circle, not us on one side, them on the other, intermingled together, and they would pray together,
It's
right?
incredible.
And it's optional, but everyone participated.
Yeah.
And the football memory is we interview kids on Saturday mornings on our show, right? And most of the time it's live, and we have a local place that brings us biscuits and gravy to feed the kids and the coaches and all of those things.
It's great.
And one of the kids in their senior memories, right, at their graduation open house from the year before, had a picture of us after Tiger Talk, where they would come around behind the console and we'd get our picture taken together by the coach. He put that picture, that was the big picture that he had in his little backdrop there. What's that worth? What does that say? It says to me that the stuff that you're doing on the air matters to people in the community, but what matters to the kids
Yeah.
is how you show love to them.
I think that's a great way to look at it. So, give you a quote that I'm going to misquote it, but it's the right sentiment from Stephanie White, coach at the Indiana Fever. And when she took the job with the Fever, she had been broadcasting for a while, and they asked her about the transition, and she said, one of the biggest differences is she goes, as a coach, we spend so much time looking at and talking about what our kids can't do, what our players are bad at, where their weaknesses are. And she said it as a broadcaster, we spend so much of our time focusing on what they can do and what they do so well. And she said, I try to coach a little bit more like a broadcaster. And I thought it was just such a beautiful way to phrase it. And it resonated with me. Obviously, that's why we launched this whole mission. It's our core philosophy that we can be demanding without being demeaning, and that I have yet to meet a human being who performs better when they feel terrible about themselves. But for
That's
some reason
true.
in sports, we have it backwards where we're like, I'm going to throw a chair and scream. And I'm like, okay, maybe it could work. But like, why can't we be both? Why can't we be incredibly demanding and have high expectations, but yet just pour positivity in? And I think that's kind of your philosophy of broadcasting too.
Yes. I think the answer to your question is why can't we be both? Because we look at this as a weakness, right? We look at the things that we don't do well as a weakness, and that's what's holding us back from fixing the
Mhm.
problem that we need to fix to be perfect, except we can't be perfect. I think the challenge to us as coaches, broadcasters, parents, teams is to understand that we can't fix all the things. We can't fix all the problems. Some of those things, that's why sports are so cool because they're played by human beings. We're
Sure.
even people who are good at certain things can have a bad day doing those things,
Oh yeah.
and it ruins them, especially we're talking about this time of year. You can have a bad 2 minutes, a bad quarter, and it ruins everything. We can't fix everything. And it's okay that we don't fix everything. It's the striving for that, it's the
Yeah.
effort that we put into that that matters more.
So how do you balance that, right? Because obviously you are, a Hall of Fame broadcaster and you've got a big fan base. So you are calling games. They are high school kids, but these are sports with a community following. In Indiana, like high school sports, I mean, I'll sit around with buddies and we'll talk like, oh, did you see the Norwell, Center Grove game? Like, I mean, we're talking about those types of things. Oh, wow, did you see Norwell versus Warsaw the other night? And then as my daughters go through and I start passing them on to the high school ranks and some kids that I've coached, I'll sit through a varsity game and I'll be like, that girl's 14.
Yeah,
She's like, some of these kids are playing as freshmen, sophomores. These games are on the radio. They're 14, they're 15 years old. They are literally children
right.
still. But so how do you balance that, like being objective and calling the game properly? Because there are mistakes, there's analysis that has to be mentioned, but ultimately, some of these are kids that can't even drive a car yet,
Yes.
right? They're children. So how
Yes.
do you balance that?
Well, it is difficult And especially as time goes on, more and more parents and grandparents, let's not take grandparents out of the equation here, parents and grandparents are more sensitive about what you say about their kids.
Very much so.
Now, I would say this particular group of boys players has helped me do that because the expectation going in wasn't as high.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into the season more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
The girls' highest expectations.
Yes.
Thought about getting back to the state championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And we held them to that standard. And
Sure.
when they didn't play to that standard, we held them to that.
Right.
And so then when people would say, were you kind of tough on the girls? No, because if they're going to get to where they're going to get to, then they have to do this. The boys, completely different. And we're in such a situation here in Warsaw that's completely unique to other places. Fewer and fewer people are broadcasting any high school sports. We have so many sponsors, Chris. We have to do the JV games and the varsity games to get all the sponsors the spots that they're promised. And so we're giving, we have over time treated the JV games like varsity games. And we've held them to a JV standard, which is a lower standard. But we have kept track of their stats.
Mm-hmm.
We kept track of their game by game scoring, how many games a player's in double figures, what their record is at home and on the road in a neutral court games. We kept track of all of that.
Sure.
And I quit doing that this year. I just said, this group doesn't need me heaping on more pressure by treating them like I treated previous JV teams. And I just said, I don't know what pressure they're going to feel outside of me, but I can control me. So I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm not going to talk about the last game or how many points a kid scored or whatever. We're going to treat every game as its own event. And when that game's over, we move on from it. And that's what we did.
That's a good way to look at it.
And it went better, right? It went better. If I would have treated them like I've treated others, it would have been a really hard year and there would have been hard feelings and it's unnecessary.
Yeah, I think you do have a little bit more latitude with like your girls team. Like, so for the folks who follow us, we had one of your star players, Jocelyn Bricker, on. We've told Jocelyn this to her face multiple times, and like it's funny as I've been to a few of your games, and people I don't even know have come up and they're like, "Are you Chris?" Like, so I think people are listening and following, and like you are not going to hurt that kid's feelings by critiquing a mistake she made on the basketball court. She is 17 going on 30. It was the most mature interview that we've done in this show. I mean, she's unbelievable. But there are some kids and some families where you do have to kind of meet them where they are, right?
Right.
I know, even though I not putting myself in your category, did it once just to help out a little bit. But I knew when I went on the air, like that I wanted to talk about the stuff that people may not normally see, because I know I only got one chance to do it. Like anyone can tell you the points, the stats, all of that stuff. And I really wanted to make it a point of like, we have a senior guard at our school who is a collegiate level player. He is signed in a Crossroads league. Stats dipped a little bit this year. And because has a 6'7" transfer who is borderline D1. The team's as good as they've been in 15 years. And I just felt like what a cool opportunity to talk about, hey, this kid has 4 points tonight and he's been incredible. He is pumped up for his team. Actually, he only had 2 when they knocked off you guys and maybe a minor upset. And that kid was jumping up and down in the tunnel. And I just thought, man, that is incredible leadership, because most seniors who are college level players, if they have 2 points at the half, they're going to get some shots up.
Right.
And I don't think the average person who hasn't played understands the level of selflessness and maturity that kid exhibited. And I thought, man, you gave me the mic for 20 minutes, so I'm going to tell you about it, right?
But Chris, I think one of the hardest things for a kid like Stephen Akase, like a Jocelyn Bricker, like a Brooke Zartman, like a Brooke Winchester that we had last year.
Yeah, she's incredible.
One of the hardest things for those kids to know, to read about a game is, when is it time for me to take over? And when is it time for me to let other people do their thing?
Sure.
And that is really, really difficult to understand. There are adults who
Hmm.
don't know how to read the room and understand those
Oh,
things
most.
in business and social situations.
Yeah.
We're asking 16, 17, 18-year-old kids to do that.
Right.
And that's really difficult. And so
Yeah.
for like the Wawasee situation, I totally get it. I was obviously broadcasting that
Yeah,
game.
it was Nolan. I mean,
And
I don't know if they listen or not. I mean,
yeah,
I've told his family the same thing, and I just thought, man, the maturity to defer to Steve, who had a physical
yep,
advantage over you guys and really
yep,
just dominated that basketball game.
yep.
For Nolan to, I think he took 3 shots the whole night, and
Yeah,
he played fantastic
yep,
defensively. He handled your quarter court, your half court trap,
yes,
but deferred to Steven and let him be the star, and they
right.
got a win. And I just thought, my goodness gracious, like I don't think the average person at home understands that
No.
he played fantastic tonight, and these stats are just stats, man. You know?
Well, and part of that, Chris, and I think you'll agree, is the fact that we see and put too much emphasis on what happens in April through the end of July.
Yeah.
And so kids know what they scored for their AAU team or their spring team or their
Yeah.
elite team or whatever. They know how many points they scored then, and they expect that to automatically transfer over, and it just doesn't. It's
Yeah.
just different.
And you talk to college coaches. We have a lot of college coaches, athletic directors. We've even had some like professional athletes on here. And that is one of the misnomers that I think kids have in like late middle school, even, or even sometimes all the way through high school, that their stats are what's going to translate to the next level. And I can assure you that the St. Francis coach who offered Nolan in that situation was in no way, shape, or form disappointed that he had 2 points against Warsaw. And if I was a college coach, I've seen the kid dunk a basketball. I've seen him score. I'd offered him that night. That's when I would have walked up and been like, that's what I'm looking for. That's a winner,
Think,
right?
think about the Crossroads League.
Yeah.
And just think about, and it wasn't the Crossroads League then, but my brother played for Bethel when Homer Drew was the coach back in the
Oh,
70s and
wow.
early 80s,
How cool
right?
is that?
So
Yeah.
I've known Grace, Bethel, Marion, Huntington. I've known about those schools for a long time.
Yeah.
And the Crossroads League is now filled with guys who can score,
Yeah.
who were their best team's scorers.
Indiana All Stars all over the place and
Yeah,
surrounding states, but a lot of first team All
right,
State Indiana kids playing in the
right.
Crossroads League. Yeah.
They're no longer getting the fourth and fifth best kids on teams. They're getting the first and second. So they've got all kinds of guys who can shoot and score. They need guys who will defend,
Mm-hmm.
who will block out, who will go in and play for 60 seconds before the media timeout and give that guy a break
Yeah.
and give everything they have for that 60 seconds and come out and high five everybody down the line and sit down and wait for the next chance. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, culture is becoming it's a buzzword and everyone talks about it, but we evidence it not in our statistics, but it's in those little things. And you'll see like some of the viral stories where it was like a baseball prospect, like one of the top prospects in the country, just mashing, hitting bombs, and but didn't get offered. And then a high level SEC coach came and watched him play. Kid went 0 for 4, struck out 4 times and made a throwing error, and they offered him after the game. And the kid was perplexed. He's like, "What in the world happened?" And they're like, "We know you're one of the best hitters in the country. We know you have power. We know you're great. What we didn't know is how do you act when it's not so great?" And he
Right.
sprinted back to the dugout. He high-fived his teammates. He didn't pout, and they offered him on the spot. And I
Yeah.
thought, man, what a really cool story. And every single coach or AD I've had on has said something similar, that they're looking
Right.
at those things. And I'm hoping they're like a mission like ours. Maybe, maybe a couple kids hear it. So that's a good transition, as you talk about some of the youth sports. I know we've had this discussion like off air too, with just some of the places that from your like lengthy experience where we are falling a little short with some of the youth sports, specifically kind of on the travel side, the AAU circuit. So, what are some things that you've seen or observed that maybe you would change, or you think might be a little bit of a warning sign for youth
Well,
sports?
I think there's two things that I see, and one of them's from the parent side,
Hmm.
and one of them is from an outside agent. From the parent side, we have convinced ourselves that we have to play on every travel team, that we have to spend our whole spring and summer for basketball players specifically. We have to spend that time going to Kentucky and Ohio. I mean, we're in Indiana, so traveling all over the Midwest,
Oh yeah.
maybe down south, maybe the East Coast. We have to do that all summer because that's the only way we're going to get seen. That's the only way we're going to get good enough to be seen or be cared about. And the truth is, in 2026, you don't have to do that. People know who's good and they know where to find them. And I think that parents, and I don't know where you're at in business, but there's an old saying that says you can get to a point where you can't give more than 100%. It's the law of diminishing returns.
Sure.
I think parents are spending so much money
Yes.
on hotels and food and travel and being gone that when they get to their high school team, there's an expectation that that money that they spent has to pay off for them. And that's a lot of pressure. And that pressure is on the kid. And then that pressure eventually gets put on the coach because what they did for their spring and summer team should translate to their high school team, except it doesn't always.
Yeah, and a lot of it's
Right?
so
What is your
program specific, right? I mean, there's kids that are going to
right?
play freshmen. There's kids that are going to start as freshmen on
Yes.
a varsity team that might come off the bench at Warsaw
Yes.
on a JV
Right.
team. So
Well,
a
and
lot of it's
that's
so program specific. Look, you could have an amazing player. She's not going to get 20 a game this year at Warsaw with Jocelyn and Brooke being that
right.
high level, right? But it does like blur it a little. Like we always talk a lot about, and I'm in the throes of it now, right? So I'm always cautious when I explore this topic, and they're like, "Wait, we don't need to do travel ball? Doesn't your daughter play?" I'm like, she does. She also loves it, right? We
Yeah.
don't travel a ton. I like having one or two tournaments a year because my daughter's favorite thing about she's in fifth grade, good little ball player. Favorite thing about her trip up to Detroit last year was they swam for an hour with her teammates. They made skits in their hotel room, and they came up with pregame handshakes that involve elbows, knees, and feet. Didn't talk at
Nice.
all about we actually won a few games. We lost. I don't even remember. I think we won a couple. I think we lost a couple. Like she's 10. Gino Ariema ain't there, right? Like take a
Right.
breath, take a breath. But
Yes.
but it really, the fine line for us has been like, is this what my kid is dying to do? Is this how they want to spend their time? Are we enjoying ourselves, or are we trying to have a 10-year-old work for a
Right.
scholarship in 8 years? And like my oldest daughter's, this is her first year playing AAU. She's in eighth grade. She's getting ready to make the transition to varsity next year. It's a big jump from eighth grade to high school. She needed a little level up in competition. We had Jocelyn on here, and she didn't play travel ball till after her eighth grade year, and
Right.
she's going to Butler, and she's on the short list for Miss Basketball. So,
Right. The,
you
the
know,
other thing, the other thing I want to bring up here is that there is this quest to be a Division I athlete. And I think if you ask 100 Division I athletes and spread it out over football, basketball, the Olympic sports, I'll bet 65 to 70 of those 100 kids would say being a Division I athlete wasn't all that I thought it was going to be. It wasn't
yeah.
all that was cracked up to be. When you're a Division I athlete, it's more of a job
Mhm.
than it is in the Crossroads League. And that's
Sure.
why a lot of kids go Division I, they're there for a year, they're hurt, their foot hurts, their ankle hurts, their shoulders not quite right. And the coach expects them to not only practice anyway,
Yeah.
but practice well and perform at the same level
Yeah. It's a
as
job.
what they were when they were 100% healthy. And they don't get that. When those kids then look around and go, is this worth it?
Yeah.
And they decide it's not. And they transfer to places like Huntington and Indiana Wesleyan and Grace and Bethel. And that's where the um, this quest to be a Division I athlete turns out to be just a false hope. And I hope that kids look at what's happening with the Crossroads League now, with the athletes in all the sports that are choosing the Crossroads League, because Division One just isn't the glorious thing that it's made out to be. It's just not. It's not the same as it used to be.
Yeah, we talk a lot about just finding like even one of our first shows was with Chad Briscoe, the athletic
Yeah.
director over at Grace, and talked about like running your race and finding your level. And by no means does that mean that becoming a D1 athlete isn't a perfectly fine goal, right? For someone like Jocelyn, who was on our show, that's where she needs to be. Like for a couple of the swimmers that we interviewed that are borderline Olympic caliber, like that's where they need to be. But that
Right.
there's great fits and great opportunities everywhere rather than just chasing the absolute highest possible level where someone will let you play and then sitting the bench being miserable.
Yeah.
Finding that right blend. And I agree with you a lot of that. You'll see it even that's where I flinch a little with some of the youth sports and the way they recruit is like D1, get that Scully, get that Scully. If you don't come play on our A team for $9,000, you'll never be D1. And it's just not this is not the right path for
No.
most middle school kids.
Yep.
That it's just a lot of pressure. I would agree with you that man,
Well,
sports is a great dress rehearsal for life. Let's use it better.
in
Yeah.
some cases, it's a pretty dark underbelly, right? There
Oh
are
yeah.
some people out there making promises
Mhm.
that they can't possibly keep. They
Yeah.
can't. And
Right.
that's where you got to really know who you're dealing with. If you're the parent of a youth athlete and you start getting phone calls or emails from somebody, you got to do your homework and know who this
Yeah.
person is and find out what they're really all about.
Oh, I had a conversation with a parent that was their kid's like a junior, and they were asking about some like really expensive high level like training softball program, and like that they thought their kid was one of the better players in the state. And you look at the recruiting services, and they had them graded out as basically the number equated to potential varsity player.
Yeah.
So you have somebody trying to charge this family tens of thousands of dollars for private lessons for their kid to become a D1 player, and they're a junior, and most recruiting services think they're just about good enough to make a varsity team.
Yes.
I mean, you look at the D1 level for the state of Indiana, there in a typical basketball season, there's maybe 12 to 15 kids in the entire state
Yeah.
that are signing D1 letters.
Yep.
Um, and a lot of those are like low major. I mean, like it's very rare we have a kid like the Columbia City girl or like Joss that are
Right.
going to play in a Power Five basketball conference.
Yes.
So, but that doesn't diminish it. Even if your career ends in like the JV level, there are so many wonderful lifelong lessons from sports. Like I could play a lick, right? Like I the lessons learned from sports are why we've built all these businesses. It's why we think the way we do. It's why we compete on a daily basis. And there's so much good if we could just strip away some of the not so great part that leads to some really bad behaviors.
I have spent most of the last 2 weeks filling online scholarship letters and references for Tiger athletes, right? Getting requests, filling out information, recommending
Wow,
kids
that's
for
awesome.
scholarships and things like that. Because as I tell them, long after you're done playing basketball or playing football or playing baseball or whatever, you're going to be a mom, you're
Yeah.
going to be a dad, you're going to be a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you're going to eventually you're going to become a parent, and you're going to take the things, and you may not even realize it till after situations are over. You may not realize that you're going to apply all the things that you learned from your high school coaches, your middle school coaches, your elementary coaches. You're going to take all that from the warehouse in your brain, and you're going to bring those things forward and apply them. Work
Yep.
ethic, staying with the task until it's done,
Mhm.
not going to bed angry with your spouse, right? Teaching your kids the right way to do things,
Yeah.
knowing how to persevere when the diagnosis on your child is bad. How are we going to handle that? Being yelled at by your boss, being given a last minute project that has to be done tonight, which means you're going to miss something that you were planning on doing. How are you going to handle that? High school sports teaches you how to
Yeah.
do that, and it still offers that to young people.
Yeah, and I think I tell our kids that all the time that like the reason I'm yelling compete or this is like it has nothing to do with basketball. I just pray that someday, when that test seems too hard or you're in a situation where a friend or people around you are making a bad decision that you don't want to make, but you're afraid to stand up for yourself, or you're in a relationship where they're not talking to you, treating you the way they
Right.
should. I just pray at some point, for even 2 seconds, you just you hear that voice, compete, 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 and we stand up and we live the life God created us to live. And I know it sounds hokey, but I passionately believe that sports is the single greatest vehicle to teach that. And it's why we launched this mission. It's why we have conversations with amazing people like you that I truly believe we can make a little dent in the culture. But I also believe that more than a little dent might be needed.
Well, it's getting harder all the time, right?
It is.
And you're crazy if you don't admit to that. It
Yeah.
gets harder every year to get kids to pull the rope the same direction.
Yeah.
Why? Because more and more of them have voices outside of the team locker room, outside of the dugout,
Yep.
that are telling them you should be starting, you should be scoring more, you shouldn't be hitting sixth, you should be hitting third. And those people, I see it mostly in the youth leagues,
Yep.
and it filters up to the high school. But I see it in those younger leagues where people who don't know what they're talking about,
That's almost like I always feel bad about it,
right?
but most people do not understand what they're watching, but have
No,
very, very loud opinions.
they're unqualified. And you know what?
Correct.
And where it gets, and I wrote about this in my column in the local paper.
Yeah.
It's been a few years ago. The guy who's griping because his kid is batting sixth instead of third is talking about his experience from 1975,
Almost always. Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
world was totally different. Sports are totally different than 1975. The game that I played back in the 80s at Argus High School is totally different now. Heck, we didn't even have a 3-point shot, right? My senior year was the last year before they put the 3-point shot in. Is the
Wow.
game different now? Of course it is.
Sure.
Almost half the shots taken in a game now are taken from 3-point range, right? So the people who are up there sniping about the coach
Yeah.
are people who don't understand what the game is and what that team requires. And that's
Yeah.
where, because a 12-year-old to 16-year-old kid is going to believe grandma and grandpa or mom and dad when they tell them you should be doing this
No,
more.
and it's so
They
harmful
are
for the
holding you
team.
back
And
for that. And
yeah.
and what are they supposed to think? They think, well, I've known this person my whole life. I've known this person for a couple months. I guess they're right. Well, even that doubt, Chris, you
Yeah.
go to the plate with doubt in your mind, guess what's going to happen? You're
Oof.
going to swing and miss.
Yep.
And I see it all the time. They have doubt in their mind that's created because the coach is telling me one thing and people up there are telling me something completely different. And the next thing you know, the ball is in the catcher's mitt.
Yeah, I hear you. So it's probably next on our list. We're actually you'll probably know some of the guests and contributors. We're working on some books and some programs for because I firmly believe, let me say this, I firmly believe that 99% of parents have amazing intentions, that very few people go in intentionally trying to undermine a coach or to harm a team or to make their kids like we just love our kids. We want what's best for them. Sometimes we just can't quite see clearly and have some disagreements. But I do think that that's our big project and our mission to make sure that while athletic glory is a wonderful goal, it is wonderful that there's more, and this can be a very, very positive experience, but for so many kids, it's just not. But
Yeah.
so let's end on a positive note, because I joked before we started. I say both of us talk for a living, so hitting the half-hour mark is absolutely impossible. There's no chance, no
No.
chance. But I do need to wrap it up and let you enjoy your day here. So obviously, you've been doing this for a long time. You've accomplished a ton. You're headed into the Hall of Fame. So as you continue on with this next stage of the career with so many things accomplished, what's the best thing about doing this? And as you keep on going, there's not much more to like accomplish. You can't make 2 Hall of Fames, right? I mean, like you've checked all the boxes, but obviously it's something you love doing. So what is the most gratifying thing as you continue on in this stage of your career?
What keeps me going is that I get to now watch kids grow up,
Hmm.
literally and figuratively, before my very eyes. I get to watch a kid go from a skinny freshman who's weak playing on the freshman team, or maybe moved up to the JV team, who then becomes a sophomore, who becomes a junior, who now is going through senior night. I get to watch that full spectrum.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a sprint through that, and sometimes it's a slow moving race. And so, what I've really come to enjoy is that process of watching kids as they grow up, and they grow up right in front of all of us. And I get to help document that process.
Well, what's cool too is there's a lot of kids out here listening. Some of their parents are going to tune in just to hear you. I guarantee you there is an army of kids that are in elementary school that are dreaming of your voice narrating their career and becoming the next, great Warsaw Tiger and beyond. So what a blessing to have you on today. Thank you so much for sharing some perspective. We will be praying for your boys and sectionals and all of our wonderful Warsaw folks who've supported us. But just thank you for everything you're doing in the community. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame nod, and we're going to be listening to your calls with some pride over the next couple seasons.
God's been good. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. I appreciate it, and best of luck to you guys in sectionals next week.
We appreciate it. We're going to need it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Play in Faith podcast. If you love what you heard, please take a moment to rate our show and share it with your friends and fellow athletes. Together, we can spread the joy and positivity that youth sports deserves. And be sure to visit playinfaith.com for more fantastic resources. We're on a mission to build a vibrant community of Christian athlete mentors that are not just a voice your athlete will listen to, but one they should. Until next time, keep playing in faith.